this lesson, you'll learn a beautiful fingerstyle melody using an easy picking pattern and a gorgeous chord progression. This is great practice to develop your finger picking skills as well as your fret hand skills, and you may find yourself wanting to play it on repeat as I do, as it's really beautiful and uplifting. So let's begin with a demo, and then we'll move into our lesson. If this melody made you smile, please show my channel some love by giving this video a thumbs up. I created this arrangement because I receive a lot of requests for original melodies and finger picking practices, so if you'd like to see more, let me know down below in the comments. This melody has a nice leisurely and carefree feel to it, so I've named it Sunday Morning. Now if you're not yet familiar with how to read tablature, then see this video link above, where I'll help you to get started reading tabs. The picking pattern that I've used throughout this melody is fairly simple, but it may be new to you. Oftentimes we pick strings 4 down to 1 for an easy picking pattern. But here we're doing the opposite, picking strings 1 up to 4. So this may take some practice to get used to. Now you may have noticed that this arrangement is for low G tuning. So I'll be using my tenor with low G tuning throughout this lesson. Now let's get started by taking a look at our pattern and how to play the arrangement. The pattern that I've used throughout this arrangement covers 4 strings and 2 beats. Here's how it sounds played slowly on a C chord. The rhythm here is 1 and 2 and. We'll pick strings 1, 2, 3, and 4 using our ring finger, middle finger, index finger, and thumb. We'll use this pattern twice in every measure of this arrangement, totaling 4 beats per measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and bringing it up to a faster tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now before you apply this pattern to the chords and notes in this arrangement, I'd recommend practicing the pattern for a bit just on a C chord until your picking hand gets comfortable with it, starting at a slower tempo until you can bring it up to a faster tempo, keeping your picking hand and wrist nice and relaxed. Now let's walk through how to play this melody. We begin on a beautiful F major 7 chord. Here we have our middle finger and ring finger on the 5th fret of strings 4 and 3. So in measure 1, we'll play our pattern twice. And in measure 2, we're going to maintain this chord shape. But to begin the measure, we're going to add our index finger to the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Then we're going to add our pinky to the 5th fret. Then measures 1 and 2 will repeat in measures 3 and 4. Now moving into measure 5, we're going to form a G minor add 9 chord. Here we have our index finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string and our middle and ring fingers on the 3rd fret of strings 4 and 2. Now one of the nice things about this chord shape, in addition to it being beautiful, is that the 1st string is open. So it gives us just a bit more time to transition between chord shapes from the end of measure 4, where we picked the 5th fret of the 4th string, into measure 5. So we can have just a slight delay in forming our G minor add 9 chord shape because we start measure 5 with the open 1st string. So we'll play our pattern twice on G minor add 9 in measure 5, and in measure 6 for our first pattern we'll add our pinky to the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Then for the 2nd pattern we'll open up the 1st string, and measure 7 is played the same way as measure 5. In measure 8, once again we'll place down our pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and then we'll open up the 1st string, and now for the very last note in measure 8, we're going to move our middle finger up to the 5th fret of the 4th string, and then we'll place down our ring finger to form our F major 7 chord that begins measure 9. Measures 9 through 15 are played the exact same way as measures 1 through 7, so I'll play through these measures for you at a slow tempo. Now, if you've been following my lessons for a while, then welcome back. And if you're new here, then welcome. I'm Lara. I'm a musician and a composer, and I love to teach fingerstyle arrangements and song tutorials for all levels. If you'd like to support my teaching and my channel by joining my Patreon community, you'll gain access to hundreds of downloads, including fingerstyle tabs, song sheets, and songbooks. The link is down below in the video description. Now let's get back to our lesson. In measure 16, we're going up to the 5th fret of the 1st string, and here I like to use my pinky. And then for the 2nd pattern in measure 16, we're going down to the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and here I like to use my index finger. Now in measure 17, we're going up to the 7th fret of the 1st string with our middle finger, and 8th fret of the 2nd string with our ring finger. We'll play our pattern twice on this C chord. Then we go to a beautiful G minor 7 chord. Here we're going to move our middle finger back to the 5th fret of the 1st string. We'll place our index finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and then our ring finger on the 6th fret of the 2nd string. In measure 19, we go to a standard C chord, 3rd fret of the 1st string, and here I like to use my ring finger, and then we move to a standard G minor 7 chord shape in measure 20. For this chord, we have our index finger covering the 1st fret of strings 1 and 2, and our middle finger covering the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Now in the 2nd pattern in measure 20, we go back to our standard C chord, and then in measure 21, we're going back to the 7th and 8th frets of strings 1 and 2 to form the same chord shape that we did in measure 17. Measures 21 through 24 are identical to measures 17 through 20, so I'll play through these 4 measures for you at a slow tempo. At the end of measure 24, you may find it easier to form your C chord with your pinky rather than your ring finger, because it frees up your other fingers a bit more to form the F chord that comes next in measure 25. In measure 25, we'll play our pattern twice on our standard F chord, with our index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string and our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. For our first pattern in measure 26, we'll add our pinky to the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and for the second pattern in measure 26, we'll move our pinky up to the 5th fret. Measures 27 and 28 are identical to measures 25 and 26. We're going to go back to our G minor add 9 chord, and measures 29 through 31 are played the same way as measures 5 through 7. Now in measure 32 we have a C7 chord. We're going to keep our middle finger in place on the 4th string. We'll lift up our index finger and ring finger and place down our pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Now if you prefer, you can use your ring finger instead of your pinky. So we'll play our first pattern on this chord, and then for our second pattern in measure 32, we'll open up the 1st string, and then in measure 33 for our final F chord, we'll move our middle finger back 1 fret to the 2nd fret of the 4th string. We'll add our index finger to the 2nd string, and we'll end with a nice slow arpeggio. I hope you enjoy learning this beautiful original melody and that it becomes a part of your finger picking playlist. Have fun practicing, and thanks for watching.